For this 8th meeting for the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission for calendar year 2013. Thank you, Vice Chairman. And ask that you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first matter on this morning's agenda is the approval of the minutes from our April 4th meeting. And I believe, Commissioner Gardner, you are the editor of the minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and if you give me a second, I can get my notes here. Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. I have reviewed the minutes of the April 4th, 2013 public meeting, and I move that they be approved as submitted.
Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as submitted here this morning by Commissioner Gardner. With a little bit of pause and trepidation, the minutes are approved, Madam Secretary. To join us this morning in beginning our public meeting, I want to welcome to the podium Ms. Cheryl Walker-Davis. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
May it please this Honorable Commission, on behalf of your various offices and bureaus, we present for your consideration and disposition the following agenda items. Commencing this morning with matters on behalf of the Bureau of Audits, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the two items appearing on page 1 of the agenda, That is the Citizens Power Energy Efficiency and Services Program Audit Report release, as well as the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Surcharge for West Penn Power Company.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to page 2 and the matter on behalf of the Bureau of Consumer Services, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation with regard to the tentative order regarding Equitable's Universal Service and Energy Conservation Plan.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning to page 3 and matters on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance in omnibus fashion, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the multiple items appearing on pages 3, commencing with Chuck V. Danino versus People's Natural Gas Company. On page 4, the first item, German and Tharamel LLC, TAPA Medical Response. It should be noted that the second item pertaining to Pearl Express LLC is being postponed until the next public meeting. The omnibus continues with the items appearing on pages 5, 6, 7, and 8 through and including the Public Utility Commission's Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement versus C&J Services, Inc.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation with regard to Burger Development LP versus Philadelphia Gas Works.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Noting the second of Commissioner Gardner. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on this recommendation as I concur with the staff initial decision.
So noted. Any further discussion? We'll note the objection of Vice Chairman Coleman. The motion passes 4-1.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the items on page 10, commencing with PUC Investigation and Enforcement versus Maurice Oganga, the remaining item on page 10, as well as all items appearing on pages 11 and 12 through and including the interconnection agreement involving Frontier Communications.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, commencing on page 13 of the agenda, it is recommended that the Commission approve the staff recommendation pertaining to the first item, the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement versus Dan Joy Trucking.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the second item pertaining to the recommendation to adopt the proposed order involving PECO's request for expedited approval of certain revisions to its initial dynamic pricing and customer acceptance plan.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any
Mr.
objections?
Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Gardner.
I will concur and result only on this matter.
So noted. The motion passes unanimously, noting that Commissioner Gardner will be concurring in result only.
In omnibus fashion, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendations remaining on page 13, as well as all items on pages 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 through and including the recommendation pertaining to the petition of PUC Energy Company.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
On page 20, turning to matters on behalf of the Law Bureau, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the first recommendation with regard to the Section 1307E reconciliation statement, streamlined procedures.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation with regard to the Northeast Heat and Light Company gas cost rate proceeding, noting the statement of Commissioner Cawley.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Cawley for purposes of his statement. Commissioner Cawley.
Thank you, Chairman. I concur in the recommendation of the staff here, but my statement is rather lengthy. Let me summarize it. We previously initiated an investigation by our small gas task force to examine issues involving the gas cost recovery mechanism and to review interest rate issues raised by Northeast Heat and Light Company as applicable to small gas utilities. The proposed rulemaking that we are initiating is an effort to improve the gas cost rate mechanisms that enable our small gas utilities to recover their just and reasonable gas costs. And my statement notes a number of the changes that are proposed. Northeast Heat and Light Company raises a significant problem for small gas companies, and that is that at the current interest rate that they must pay on over collections, it is often impossible for them to recover any earnings at all on the sale. And therefore, as a part of this rulemaking, we are looking into an issue that happens to be the subject of current House Bill 1188, printers number 1484. But that legislation may not pass. And in the meantime, I request that as a part of the rulemaking, we invite interested parties to comment on what they believe is the optimal interest rate to approve as a part of the rulemaking, including historical options of the legal interest rate of 6%, the maximum residential mortgage rate, or the proposed prime rate for commercial borrowing, or the LIBOR 3-month, 6-month, or 12-month rate, or some other interest rate. And I look forward to the responses of interested parties. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawley. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the statement of Commissioner Cawley.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation pertaining to the Windstream Pennsylvania LLC petition for bona fide retail request extension, appearing on page 20 of the public meeting agenda, noting the statement of Commissioner Whitmer.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like my statement entered into the record as if I'd read it in its entirety. Before the Commission today is the petition of Windstream, Pennsylvania for an extension of a bona fide retail request deployment relating to the carrier serving area and the Sheckleyville Exchange. Windstream is obligated to demonstrate that there is good cause for the Commission to grant an extension. The company has adequately demonstrated that an extension is warranted because the company experienced unavoidable delays in acquiring an easement needed to install additional fiber, copper, and terminal equipment to provide broadband to this CSA. Although Windstream has met the statutory and regulatory threshold of showing good cause for this proceeding, I'm concerned that the company did not timely file its petition for the requested extension to permit adequate review by the Commission. In this case, Windstream waited until 9 days before the due date for the deployment of the BFRR to notify the Commission that an extension was needed for this project. In doing so, the company did not provide adequate time for the Commission to review the petition before the deadline for deployment expired. Considering that this is not Windstream's first time at the rodeo, I wish to remind the company that it must be more diligent in timely filing its petitions for extensions of BFRR deployment so that the Commission has adequate time to review the circumstances related to the delayed deployment. However, it's more important for Windstream to timely file its petitions to extend certain BFRR deployments so that consumers are fully aware of when they can expect advanced services and broadband availability in their communities. In today's dynamic price environment, all Pennsylvanians are in immediate need of broadband technology so that consumers can access the internet for necessary transactions. At the same time, I'm encouraged by Windstream's willingness to offer any customer included in the Sheckleyville CSA one free month broadband service for every month delay in deployment beyond the original date of April 3rd, 2013. I applaud this corporate initiative, but continue to encourage Windstream to complete all BFRRs and its December 31st, 2013 Chapter 30 broadband deployment in a timely fashion so to advance services and broadband capability to be delivered to all Pennsylvanians as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the statement of Commissioner Whitmer.
And it is recommended that the Commission adopt the last item appearing on page 20 with regard to the BFRR deployment extension request of Verizon PA.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to matters on behalf of the Office of Administrative Law Judge and matters appearing on page 21, we recommend the adoption of ALJ Melillo's initial decision approving the settlement regarding the Commission's Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement versus UGI pertaining to the Millersville explosion, noting the statement of Vice Chairman Coleman and the statement of Commissioner Gardner.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Vice Chairman Coleman for purposes of his statement. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd ask that my statement be entered into the record as though I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission for disposition is the initial decision approving a joint petition for settlement between the Commission's Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement and UGI Utilities, Inc. If approved, the settlement will resolve an investigation arising out of a gas explosion on October 31st, 2011 in Millersville, Pennsylvania. Although there was no bodily injury, the explosion resulted in almost $500,000 of property damage. According to the complaint filed by our Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement staff, the precipitating cause of the explosion was a third-party contractor line hit that ruptured an 8-inch gas main. The complaint alleges, among other things, that UGI failed to properly mark its underground facilities and failed to have procedures in place to locate lines in certain circumstances. Under the settlement, UGI agrees to pay a civil penalty of $200,000, which is not recoverable from ratepayers. Among the remedial measures in the settlement, UGI agrees to improve its one-call response procedures and conduct refresher training for all line locator personnel. Excuse me. UGI also agrees to change its internal one-call screening system to allow it to contact an entity making a one-call request to remind the entity of its responsibilities under the One Call Act and to inquire about the entity's intent to spot the gas facilities prior to crossing them. If a non-satisfactory response is provided, UGI will take additional follow-up action, including a field visit to stop the operation. UGI agrees to conduct refresher training and make this screening system change within 90 days of the final order approving the settlement. In recent years, the U.S. Department of Transportation has partnered with the states during the month of April to recognize it as National Safe Digging Month. On April 1st, 2013, the Commission launched the National Safe Digging Month by issuing a press release reminding utilities, residents, and contractors to use safe digging practices. In Pennsylvania, safe digging practices include the requirement that all utilities, contractors, and homeowners call 811 at least 3 business days before using power equipment to make certain underground utility lines that are marked. Although I am pleased with the remedial measures agreed to by UGI in the settlement, this case illustrates the importance of both facility owners and excavators meeting their obligations under the PA One Call Act. In Pennsylvania, third-party line hits of underground utility facilities have been and continue to be the leading cause of damage to utility infrastructure. To help avoid these hits, I urge utilities to be vigilant in complying with the PA One Call responsibilities, including those related to line marking. Also, I am deeply troubled by the allegations in UGI's statement in support of the settlement about the excavator's failure to comply with the PA One Call Act in both this case and with other projects. If true, these allegations show a complete disregard for public safety that I find unacceptable. Clearly, excavators need to be equally vigilant in complying with the PA One Call Act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Now I'd like to recognize Commissioner Gardner for purposes of his statement. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like my statement to be entered into the record as if I read it in its entirety. Over the course of my tenure on the Commission, I've expressed my views on the operations of the UDI companies on numerous occasions. Just last year, I authored a motion rejecting the proposed settlement filed in a UGI Central Penn gas case where the company's alleged failure to mark its pipeline resulted in a third-party line strike. Today, the Commission must once again consider a settlement involving a UGI company's failure to properly mark its pipelines. In the case before us, the natural gas explosion occurred on October 31st, 2011 in Millersville. One home was almost completely destroyed and the neighborhood business was damaged. The explosion occurred when a third-party contractor ruptured a UGI plastic gas main. As the Vice Chairman has already stated, according to the complaint, UGI also failed to have appropriate measures in place to address damage prevention, failed to perform timely inspection of its shutoff valve, and failed to shut down the gas line in a timely manner. Obviously, this incident and the earlier incidents demonstrate a need for the UGI companies to develop rigorous processes and procedures for marking their pipeline and responding to third-party requests to locate line. The UGI companies also must ensure that their employees are properly trained in these processes. The civil penalty of $200,000 agreed to in the settlement is adequate. However, the part of the settlement which are essential to my support are that the utility will update its procedures for line location and emergency shutoff, and will provide remedial training for all line location employees at the 3 UGI companies. I urge the UGI companies to complete the remedial measures and employee training within the next 60 days. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting the statement of Vice Chairman Coleman and Commissioner Gardner. And let me take this opportunity to commend the Vice Chairman for his leadership on the one-call legislative effort. And this is part of this discussion about 6,600 line hits that hit across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And not to single out UGI here, but I think it's fair to say the train has left the station to our gas companies in terms of your ability to invest in adequate training and, more importantly, updating your procedures in a post-Philadelphia Gas Works explosion and a tragic event in Allentown. And I also find it alarming as we talk about expansion of gas service. Some of these same companies are putting up roadblocks to legislative efforts. So it's kind of disheartening to see that. But with that in mind, we'll move forward here this morning with the passage of this motion, again, noting the statements of Vice Chairman Coleman and Commissioner Gardner.
Continuing with the presentation of agenda items, it is recommended that the Commission adopt ALJ Cheskis's initial decision in the proceeding involving Signature Sedan Service, Inc.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to page 22 of the agenda with regard to the tariff supplement of the Equitable Gas Company and the joint petition for settlement filed in that proceeding, there is the motion of Commissioner Cawley.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Cawley for purposes of his motion. Commissioner Cawley.
Thank you, Chairman. As with my earlier statement, I ask that this entire motion be placed in the transcript of our public meeting as if I had read all of it. Before us are a supplement tariff gas equitable to become effective January 12, 2013, which of course was suspended and investigated. The joint petition for settlement of the rate investigation, along with statements in support thereof, and Administrative Law Judge Long's recommended decision approving the settlement without modification. In this proceeding, Equitable proposed to unbundle, meaning separate natural gas procurement costs from distribution rates, and to recover these costs through a gas procurement charge that would be included in its price to compare. So there would be separate base rates, distribution rates, and there would be a separate gas procurement charge. The company proposed to establish also a merchant function charge rider to remove uncollectible bad debt expense from distribution rates, and to also to recover these costs through this separate rider that would be included in the price to compare, which makes it easier for those wishing to shop for natural gas from an alternative supplier to have the rates on an apples-to-apples basis. Finally, the tariff request reformulated the price to compare to include the newly created gas procurement charge and the merchant function charge and the purchase gas cost error factor. Upon review of the record, I believe that Equitable has provided sufficient evidence to support its merchant function charge. However, the record reveals that it has not complied with our regulations regarding the gas procurement charge. Specifically, our regulations require that certain cost elements be included in a gas purchase charge, including working capital. That should be in the GPC, not in base rates. However, if you look at the record, however, neither Equitable's filing nor the settlement provides for removal of working capital from the base rates and placing it in the purchase charge. And his explanation, I think, is inadequate. It defines gas procurement working capital as the pre-tax return amount of the gas storage inventory. In its most recent base case in 2008, which was also a settlement, Equitable asserts that because a defined pre-tax return rate and Equitable's storage inventory were not established in the proceeding, it cannot provide an estimate of these costs. I think it can break out the cash working capital, however, and I think their explanation fails to justify its failure to comply with our regulations, which require removal of these costs from the base rates. Therefore, Equitable should make a compliance filing within 20 days of the effective date of our order, and that filing should remove the estimated costs for working capital from base rates and a revised filing of a gas purchase cost, including cash working capital. In light of this modification, the settling parties may inform the Commission if they propose to withdraw their support from the settlement within 5 days of our order, and they may file comments, if they wish, to the compliance filing within 10 days of its filing. Therefore, I move that the recommended decision be modified consistent with this motion and that the Office of Special Assistance prepare an appropriate order consistent with this motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the remaining two items on page 22 through and including ALJ Salapa's recommended decision in the NFG Universal Service Charge Reconciliation Proceeding.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that concludes the presentation of regular agenda items. Turning now to the carrying agenda, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation in the proceeding involving the petition for appeal of staff action pertaining to First Energy request to assign the default service supply master agreement, noting Commissioner Whitmer's statement as well as Commissioner Gardner's statement.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Gardner for purposes of his statement. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like my dissenting statement to be entered into the record as if I read it in its entirety. MedEd and West Penn have requested permission to assign the supplier master agreement representing the obligation to provide electric generation for residential classes on default service from a winning bidder in its last default service auction to First Energy Solutions. By secretarial letter issued on April 16, 2013, the Commission denied the request to make the assignment, stating that it did not believe this to be in the public interest. First Energy Solutions' appeal of staff action is now before the Commission for consideration. While I agree that this type of assignment is permissible under the provision of the supplier master agreements entered into between the First Energy companies and the winning bidder, I cannot ignore that this particular assignment involves affiliated parties, MedEd, West Penn, and First Energy Solutions. I do not believe that this assignment is permissible under the terms of the existing affiliated interest agreements between First Energy distribution companies and First Energy Solutions. Because this type of affiliated interest assignment has the potential to jeopardize the integrity of the competitive process, I will respectfully dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. I'd now like to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like my statement entered into the record also as if I had read it in its entirety. Before the Commission today is the appeal of staff action by First Energy Solutions related to MedEd and West Penn's request for approval of a default service supply master agreement assignment from a successful bidder to FES. Reluctantly, I will vote to approve this assignment. While I agree that the assignment is legally permissible under MedEd and West Penn's SMAs, I believe that today's action has the potential to raise substantial issues regarding the integrity of the EDC's default service procurement auctions and the Commission's review of those results. I do appreciate the need for assignments in certain situations, and I also do not believe it is appropriate for the Commission to micromanage a company's chosen business model. However, I do believe that the assignments should be more stringently limited. If contractual obligations can be assigned without more rigorous standards than those approved here today, there is a danger that the wholesale energy suppliers will enter their bids speculatively, hoping that future market conditions are favorable, but with an easy exit clause available to relieve them of their responsibilities should their estimates prove incorrect. Such speculation can only serve to further distort the default service price signals relied upon by Pennsylvania's retail competition market. As EDC default service plans are filed in the coming months, we must be diligent in our efforts to carefully review each EDC's SMA assignment clause and the limitations outlined therein. A thorough analysis of these plans will ensure that the assignment clauses contain appropriate limitations designed to protect the interests of successful EGS bidders, the integrity of the EDC's default service auctions, and more importantly, do no harm to Pennsylvania's successful competitive electric market. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. I would simply add, I am too going to use the word reluctantly support this request. I should remind the company and the company's counsel that it was so noted that on a 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, this filing hit. And I call it an amateur-like move on the part of the company not to do a briefing with technical staff and to expect that the turnaround on this particular request was supposed to be, quote, rubber stamped is just audacious. So I remind my brethren out in Akron that they need to do a better job when interfacing with technical staff here at the Commission. And again, I reluctantly support this request.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cawley.
I, too, reluctantly vote for this. I don't recall seeing one of these before, and it's highly unlikely that I can be persuaded to vote for another one of these. Circumstances may arise that would justify it, but it better be very compelling. And therefore, I associate myself enthusiastically with Commissioner Whitmer's statement. I couldn't have expressed my concerns better.
Okay. Any further discussion? We'll note the objection of Commissioner Gardner, and hearing the vote is 4-1, noting the dissenting vote from Commissioner Gardner and the statement of Commissioner Whitmer, and 2 verbal statements, one from myself and Commissioner Cawley.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation pertaining to the PECO Energy Company's petition to amend its Energy Efficiency and Conservation Plan 2 to continue its mass market direct load control program and to make other minor changes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to page 2 of the carrying agenda, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the staff recommendation with regard to the Philadelphia Gas Works disk filing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Before we adjourn, are there any other items to come before us this morning?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hearing none, we are adjourned.